humans acting like animals or animals acting like humans. Ew. There are very few things in horror movies or any type of media that freak me out as much as that. It's just so creepy and uncanny valley, which is the theme of this movie. Ugh. Just the cover alone, like, ew. So if that uncanny valley area of humans acting like animals creeps you out as much as me, then you're in for a fun ride with this movie. So the premise of this film is that there's a handsome rich guy who lives on his own, except he has a human dog living in his house with him. With that creepy ass dog mask. Oh my gosh. This is one of those horror elements that actually gets to me. Because I think most horror movies are so cheesy and I don't watch them because of that. But this kind of stuff, besides the human dog that lives in his house and completely acts like a dog, that he treats completely like a dog, this good-looking rich guy lives on his own, is kind of secluded, probably for the best. But then he decides to go on the, I guess, Norwegian equivalent of a dating app, and he meets this girl. I think her name is, Sigrid? Again, they're Norwegian. I'm gonna butcher everything. Except his name is Christian. The main good-looking guy who lives with this dog is named Christian. So Christian goes on the dating app, meets Sigrid. I'm gonna say Sigrid. That sounds horrible. What a Sigrid, whatever. And they hit it off, and after the first night, she goes back to his place after the first date. But okay, anyway, that's another vein to break open. The next morning, she wakes up in his bed to this humanoid dog creature in the corner of the room staring at her. Ooh, I think my shock would have killed me in that moment. And then she wakes up Christian, who's next to her, like, what the hell is that? Like, you said you had a dog, but not this type of dog. This ain't no dog. And he's like, oh no, that's Frank. That's just my little buddy Frank. And then Frank skedaddles out of there. And then Christian says, oh yeah, he likes to act like a dog. Make sure you absolutely pretend he's a dog at all times. And in all situations. I mean, Frank even sleeps in a crate some nights and eats out of a dog food bowl. So understandably, she's weirded the hell out and leaves right then and plans on breaking contact with him until Sigrid's friend sees Christian's dating profile and realizes he's actually like a millionaire or billionaire who just lives on his own. So the friend pretty much encourages Sigrid to go back regardless of the little weirdness of the dog situation because Christian's loaded. So Sigrid does go back and they go on quite a few more dates and end up at his house quite a few more times. And so Sigrid comes to terms with Frank, mostly for the sake of Christian's money. Priorities. The timeline isn't super clear. It may be also because of the language barrier or the auto-generated subtitle barrier. It seems they're dating at least several weeks, or maybe a month or so, before Christian suggests that he, Sigrid, and Frank go to one of his rich cabins out in the woods. We all know what happens when people suggest a trip to the cabin in the woods. So she kind of begrudgingly agrees because Frank will be joining them, the actual adult man who lives as a dog in her boyfriend's house. But she agrees and just hopes for the best. Maybe she's a little blinded by the money still. So they go to this cabin in the woods. Of course, secluded cabin in the secluded area of the woods, of course. And the first day there, everything is fine. And she's even like, ew. There's a scene where she's like petting Frank and playing with him, like acting like he's an actual dog. And any scene and every scene in the movie that's like that weirds me out. Like, why are we pretending so hard? There's no amount of money that's worth that. And how weird does a guy have to be to have an adult man living as a dog in his house? Like, that is not even a red flag at that point. That is a neon red banner. Anyway, so the first day at the cabin goes okay, although Christian kind of reveals more his control freak side, which it was hinted at before, but now that he's alone with her, he doesn't hide it as much, I guess. But it's the second day when Sigrid and Frank, the dog, are alone together, which is a rare occurrence because Christian does not leave them alone together at all. You'll see why. It's in this moment when they're alone that, Frank's acting like a dog. He's kind of like jumping up on Sigrid, and then he whispers through his creepy dog mouth that moves when he barks. So maybe Frank, the guy who's acting like a dog, isn't as crazy as we all think. Maybe he doesn't want to be a dog. Oh, that scene grossed me out so much. Ew. So Sigrid is obviously rattled by this, and obviously sees Christian in a whole different light after this, and is obviously creeped out by him, and on high alert. Like, what is the situation she just got herself into? So later on, she offers to take Frank for a walk. Again, fleshing out all those dog attributes. Ew. And Christian begrudgingly agrees. So Sigrid and Frank the dog go on a walk. Of course, he's on all fours. He has a leash on. And of course, we never see his face because it's under the dog suit, which is horrifying. So they go on their walk, but Frank is obviously still very wary to say anything because he's not allowed to speak, because, you know, he has to act out the part of a dog. Of a dog. He's got to sell the role. And he's worried that Christian's monitoring them. But regardless, he says to Sigrid, when they're far enough away, that Christian is a psycho. He's trapped him in this life, and he wants out, and the only way out for both of them is to kill Christian. So obviously she's rattled even more. So now she realizes she's stuck in a secluded cabin in the middle of the woods with a psychopath and the man that has been trapped and enslaved as his human dog. So she has to try and act normal around Christian, even when she hides a knife under her pillow. Otherwise, he'll know that Frank the dog was speaking to her and revealing these things. Except Christian already knows, because, of course, being the control freak psycho that Christian is, he has everything bugged. And he heard their whole conversation on Sigrid and Frank's little walkabout. And the whole time, even up to the second day, Christian's been revealing more and more of his true self, his control freak nature, and, you know, little hintings of psychopathy. Beside all the stuff Frank said, she starts to realize he's actually kind of nuts. So it's on what I believe to be the third day, where Christian kind of loses it and confronts her, and reveals to her that he knows that Frank has told her what's going on. And that, of course, is when stuff hits the fan. So he drags Sigrid downstairs to the front room where Frank is in a tiny dog crate, whimpering and crying because he's most likely just being beaten up by Christian. Then Christian unlocks the crate to probably manhandle Frank even more or something. But then Frank, in his, I guess, learned dog behavior, bites the hell out of Christian's arm, allowing Sigrid time to rip the keys from the lock that he just opened and open the front door. Because, of course, Christian keeps all the doors locked constantly. Psycho things, psycho things. So Sigrid manages to escape while Frank is biting the hell out of Christian's arm. And she runs into the woods, but they're in the middle of nowhere, and she realizes there's no way she can find her way back to civilization. Meanwhile, Christian has taken Frank the dog to the barn and is beating him up as his punishment while Sigrid's gone, but she's not far because she's lost. So in the barn, Christian has Frank over his knees and has like opened like a butt flap in Frank's dog suit, and is like spanking his bare butt as punishment. Like really hard too. Foolishly though, Christian has positioned this butt spanking so that his back is toward the barn door. So Sigrid comes back with a big log she's found in the woods from her adventures of being lost, and hits him over the head, but in true horror movie fashion, she only hits him once, and he doesn't even get knocked out from it. She hits him once, then drops the weapon, her one protection, and goes over to Frank, even though Christian's obviously not even out. But I mean, he's out of it because he just got hit in the back of the head. But Frank's being beaten so much that he can't really walk or get out. So she's trying to carry this full-grown man in the dog suit and get him out, but she can't, obviously. And Christian has time to get to his senses after having his brain jogged by the log, and overpowers them. And then the movie cuts to some unspecified time later, where we see Frank back in his tiny little crate, his dog crate, so obviously he didn't escape. And then Christian goes out to the barn, and tied up in the barn in the far corner on a dirty old mattress is another dog figure, Sigrid. And the creepiest thing about it, of all things, is even though we don't have a specified amount of time later, like how far it is into the future, Sigrid is 100% living the part of the dog. Like, she's wagging her tail, her whole body, and she's excited to see Christian and acting like an excited dog when he brings her her food bowl. We realize why that is in the final scene, moments later. Because the last scene is Christian going back inside, setting a third dog food bowl on the ground, and then we see this little creature, or this little person in another dog suit, crawling on the floor toward the bowl. This movie was so creepy and weird and disturbing, but in all the good ways. In all the ways a horror movie should be, right? And sure, there are like a few plot holes here and there, but if a movie's good enough, I'll suspend my belief to an extent. But overall, I thought it was well done, and I thought it was a fresh idea. A fresh, creepy, awful idea. So yeah, if you want to be creeped out, weirded out, and disturbed, give Good Boy a good watch.